Hello and welcome to the course on C Programming Learn to Code series. This is the 18th lecture of Unit 1, and in this lecture we will continue our discussion on algorithm and flowchart. This is the part 3 of algorithm and flowchart series. So let's begin. First I will define what do you mean by a flowchart. So what is a flowchart? A flowchart is a structured approach to represent the solution steps outlined in an algorithm. What does it mean? It means suppose you have already written an algorithm, and we know that every algorithm contains some steps. Okay, and what the flowchart says, we have to represent each of these steps by the help of, we will represent all these steps by the help of some symbol. So what are the different symbols that I am going to discuss in the next slide. So generally we are going to use some symbols to represent all these steps. Okay, so I have written it with the help of simple and easy to learn symbols. So what those symbols shows? That symbol shows how the inputs processed through the steps systems and produces the output. That means how whenever the data is given to the algorithm, how the process get executed and how the flow gets executed in the steps, that we are going to show you in a graphical representation, where we can say a flowchart is a graphical representation of all the steps involved in an algorithm. Okay, so that is the proper definition of a flowchart. So let us learn what are the different symbols we are going to use to represent all these steps. So here it is. So there are symbols like flow lines. So what is the use of flow line? Whenever you want to transfer the control from one symbol to any other symbol, you use some arrow mark. So those are called actually the flow lines. Okay. Similarly, when you want to represent a process, so what do you mean by a process? Where something gets executed inside your CPU. Okay, CPU is executing something. Like if you remember in the last class, I have already discussed the steps involved in finding out the addition of two number algorithm. So in that algorithm I have already explained C is equal to A plus B. So this is a process symbol, means this is a process, means this step involves a process. So whenever you want to write these kind of steps, you will use this symbol. Okay, and whenever you want to input something to your solution steps or to the algorithm, or anything your algorithm produced as an output, everything will be represented by this particular shape. This shape is actually rhombus. So rhombus symbol is used to represent a input output statement. Then the next step will be your start and stop. So this symbol is used to represent start and stop of every algorithm. I have already told you that every algorithm contains two mandatory steps. The first step, that is called start, and the end step, that is called the stop. So to represent those two steps, this symbol is used. Then comes the condition. If you remember, I have already told you that whenever there will be a condition upon which the other statements depend whether to execute it or not. Let's say this is the condition step. Okay, if this is the condition, if the condition becomes true, we will execute this line. If the condition becomes false, we will execute this line. So that means when condition true, this line will not execute it. Similarly, when the condition becomes false, this line should not be executed. So this type of condition, when you want to represent this particular condition, you should use this symbol, rhombus, right? Then comes your on-page connector and off-page connector. Remember that whenever we are going to draw a flowchart, we are generally drawing it using a pen and paper. Okay, so let's say you are using a paper and you are started drawing a flowchart. So while you are drawing the flowchart, let's say your paper get finished, means some at particular place the paper is not sufficient to represent all the entire flowchart. So what you will do, either you will use on page connector, or you will use a symbol called off page connector. So if space is available in the same page, then you can add a circle over here. So the page must be of this size. Okay, so you can add a circle over here and start the steps again from here. Okay, so this is how you are going to represent the flowchart if you are connecting a on page connector. If the entire page get finished and there will be no space available in your paper, then what you will do, you will use another paper. So for that reason, what you are going to do, here you can connect the off page connector, then the off page connector you can start from here, and again the flowchart drawing will be continued. Okay, so these two symbols are used for on page connector and off page connector. Fine. Later on, and finally another symbol that is called your function or subroutine. So subroutine means this is that specifies a particular operation. So if in your algorithm there will be, the algorithm is itself collection of functions or subroutines, then each subroutine is going to be represented with this symbol. So what is function and what is subroutine, that may not be understood to you if you are a beginner. So forget about this symbol for the time being. Whenever the time came and we are going to discuss on some kind of problem, there I will explain why this symbol is particularly used. Okay, so for the timing, you just remember this, at least you should remember flow line, process, input output, start and stop, and condition. All other three symbols, that is your on page connector, off page connector, and this function, is rarely used in our discussion. Okay, so all the definition of these symbols has already been explained in this particular slide. So I strongly recommend that all the viewer of this video must go through it and prepare their own note for that. So that's all for the discussion of flowchart. What is a flowchart? But I am not finished yet. Let me explain this, means let me use this symbol to explain you an algorithm that we have discussed in the last class. So go to that particular class now. So here it is. In the last class, if you remember, we talked about addition of two number, and I have written a algorithm for that. So that this is the algorithm for addition of two numbers. So what are the symbols we are using, means what are the different steps? There will be 5 different steps involved in it. So what I am going to do is I will explain how to draw a flow chart for this particular algorithm. So let us start. So if you remember, we are using this symbol for start and stop. Okay, start or stop, we are using this symbol. And for input output, what we are using, we are using for input output, this is for input or output, right? And for processing, what we are using this symbol, that is rectangle. Okay, so this rectangle we are using for that is called process. Okay, then for this is the input output line, and this is a stop. So you just remember these three symbols. Now these three symbol we are using to draw this figure. There will be another symbol which is like this, and we are not going to use this one. This is for condition, because this algorithm does not contain any conditional step, so we are not going to use it. So let us start. So the first step will be start. So what I am going to do, I will draw the figure like this, and I will write start inside it, start. Okay, then what I am going to do, I will the second step is read AB. So for read AB, this is a input statement. So for input statement, what symbol we are using? This symbol. So I have to draw that symbol again over here, means we have to draw the symbol here. Okay, now we should specify the arrow mark, that is your flow line, like this. Then inside it, what we are going to write, I will write read A comma B. Okay, after that, step number 3 specifies a process. So to use that process, we have to use the process symbol. So let us draw the process symbol here, right? So I have drawn the process symbol, then I have to use the arrow mark. Fine. Then what I am going to write, I will write the steps over here. set C is equal to A plus B. Fine. This is the process symbol. Then the next step will be print C. So that is a output statement. So I have to draw the output symbol again. So for input and output both are same. So I have to draw the output symbol here over here. Let me erase it again. I'll correctly draw it. So this is the output symbol I am drawing here. Then I will use the arrow mark, that is called the flow line. Then finally I have to write print C over here, print C. After that the last point is your stop. So I should draw the stop symbol, stop, then your flow line. Okay, so now this is actually representing the flow chart of this particular algorithm. Got it? So I have written the algorithm and I have already shown you how to draw the flow chart of that algorithm. There will be some complicated program we will learn in the coming lecture. So this is the simplest one. So it is looking simple, but we will face some problems while we are solving some complex problem. But remember, after writing the algorithm, it is quite easy to draw the flowchart. Okay, that's all for the today's class. Thanks for listening. Bye bye.